So smartphone manufacturer Poco is all about providing killer performance for the kind of price that won't make your sphincter clench tight enough to cut through steel. And on both of those counts, the fresh new Poco F3 phone definitely delivers. This absolute unit costs from just 329 quid, and yet it boasts the super-powered Snapdragon 870 chipset with 5G support, plus a gorgeous AMOLED screen, stereo speaker setup, and some very respectable camera tech. Now, I've been using the Poco F3 as my personal full-time smartphone for a good few days now, so here is my in-depth review, and for more on the latest greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! So the design of the Poco F3 is perfectly functional and inoffensive. You don't get any crazy slogans branded across the arse, unlike the new Poco X3 Pro, so that is definitely a bonus. And speaking of arse, that back end is constructed from Gorilla Glass 5, exactly the same as the front end, and it's a shame it didn't get updated to Gorilla Glass 6, but you know what, it's been absolutely fine. I've been treating this thing pretty roughly these past few days, and not a single scratch or scuff to speak of. And you even get a pre-installed screen protector up front as well, so definitely awesome news if you're a bit of a klutz. And these glass slabs are separated by a bit of shiny plastic edging, which also seems fairly hardy. As for your colour options, where you got a choice of 3 here with the Poco F3, you got this here Arctic White model, otherwise you've also got Night Black or Deep Ocean Blue. Not particularly imaginative name in there on the colour front, but they do what they say on the tin. This white model is undeniably charming, with a soft touch finish that gives it great hand feel, so to speak. Plus that matte finish is great for repelling or hiding grubby fingerprints and marks. The Poco F3 is definitely a bit of a brick at near 200 grams, and of course one-handed use is about as pleasurable as genital torture. Although you do thankfully at least get some one-handed help if you need it. Now the Poco F3 sports a tweaked version of Xiaomi's MiUI 12 launcher, known simply as the Poco launcher. And on the surface you get a mostly stock Android 11 vibe, but plenty of bonus bits have been packed in there, such as the excellent control center, which has been 100% nicked off of Apple. Basically all of the best bits, all my favourite parts of MiUI 12 are present and correct, including the excellent video toolbox features, which can be used for the likes of YouTube. And as usual, you got that excellent game turbo mode as well, which I'll bang on about in a bit. Of course, MiUI 12 is a massive improvement over previous incarnations of that MiUI launcher, but it still has its issues, such as the ridiculous number of pre-installed apps. You've got the likes of TikTok on there, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of this crap, which you thankfully can get rid of fairly easily. And yes, be warned, you will see some adverts lurking here in the Poco launcher as well, but these are very rare. I only really saw them whenever I was installing a new app from the Google Play Store. They're very unintrusive, they certainly can just be ignored, and they're definitely not a massive issue like some people would have you think. As for security, well, that side-mounted fingerprint sensor was a bit confusing at first, as it looks just like your typical power button, not a standard flat-edge mounted scanner. But this does work impressively well, especially considering it's even thinner than my hairline. And it's also backed by a just as dependable slice of face recognition, which is absolutely fine as long as, of course, you're not outside and all masked up. Now the Poco F3 rocks a 6.67-inch AMOLED display, which is bigger and brighter than most other OLED screens that you get from the likes of the Realme 8 Pro around this price point. You get respectable enough detail levels from the Full HD Plus resolution, although the sheer size of this screen means images aren't as crisp as some of the competition. However, the colours are proper poppy. On that vivid mode, more vibrant movies and photos will absolutely knock your socks off. And that HDR10 Plus support means you get incredible contrast too. And yeah, you've got full HDR support in streaming services such as Netflix. You can really kick back and enjoy those natural, realistic looking visuals. And you've got 120Hz refresh on this thing as well, which is absolutely stellar for an OLED display at this sort of price point. Now, the Poco F3's stereo speakers are certainly loud as hell on that maxed out volume, although the top speaker is quite tinny compared with the bottom effort. You've got the usual audio tuning smarts on there to match whatever you're up to. There's also an equalizer on there if you want to fine tune the performance yourself. And yeah, boo hiss, there is no headphone jack action here on the Poco F3, which is something that a lot of budget rivals do offer. But I really enjoyed streaming high fidelity tunes to my Bluetooth headphones, using a bit of the Bluetooth 5.1. Great sounding audio. And the real highlight of the Poco F3, and one area where rivals really cannot touch it, is the fresh Snapdragon 870 chipset stuffed inside. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, the Snapdragon 870 was just announced by Qualcomm a couple of months ago, and it's essentially a Snapdragon 865 Plus. It's got basically the same architecture as that 865 Plus, but it's got a bit of a boost to the primary CPU core. And considering the ROG Phone 3, which is dedicated to gaming, came out last year with that 865 Plus, and this has got an even better, fresher chipset on it, that tells you all you need to know about the shit-hot performance of this thing. And the base model for 329 quid comes with 6 gigs of DDR5 RAM as well as 128 gigs of storage. You can upgrade that for just 20 quid more and get 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage. Absolutely mental. My review model of the Poco F3 was the 8 gig version and it ran like a dream, helped along by the nippy UFS 3.1 storage. If it's gaming you're after, that Adreno 650 GPU can keep up with even the most demanding Android titles like Genshin Impact playing on the highest detail level, and that frame rate rarely dipped even the tiniest bit below the 60 FPS maximum. The perfectly flat display also boasts a 360Hz touch sampling rate, so every swipe and poke provokes an instant response. And if you want a game for the duration where you got that liquid cool tech, so copper piping plus graphite layers equals fingers not getting singed and phone performance not throttling when you spend all day capping morphos or smacking 10 bells at these annoying little jumpy twats here. And then you've got that aforementioned game turbo feature packed into the Poco launcher as well, which serves up all of the usual stuff like notifications blocking and a bit of performance boost functionality too. This can be called up at any time with a simple swipe, although some of the icons are a bit wishy-washy, so it does take a while to get used to exactly what everything does. And that's not all, because you've also got Qualcomm's X55 modem, so that means full 5G support on the Poco F3, as well as a bit of Wi-Fi 6 action, so very tasty connectivity. And one of the only areas where I wasn't 100% in love with the Poco F3 was the battery life. You've got a 4520 mAh cell stuffed in here, so not quite as big as that fresh new Poco X3 Pro, which launched at the same time. And I did find that I could generally make it through a full day on a single charge, but I was usually running on dregs by the time I was all tucked up with Teddy. And once I did manage to kill this thing by 7 PM, although admittedly that was with a good bit of Skype and Genshin Impact action. And on the charging front, nothing particularly spectacular there. 33 watt fast charging, so it'll power up again in about an hour or so, and there's no wireless charging support. Okay, so far so pretty bloody lovely, but what about that camera tech? Well, what you got here on the back end of the Poco F3 is a triple lens setup spearheaded by a 48 megapixel primary sensor. The good news is this does a decent job with everyday pics. You've got a bit of 4-in-1 pixel binning, which means the 48 meg sensor produces 12 meg photos on auto mode, and they look perfectly sharp when blown up. Now, pixel binning helps to deal with less than ideal lighting, so you get bright balanced shots most of the time, although some of my daylight shots were a bit oversaturated. Still, colours look natural even with soft indoor lighting, as long as you stay clear of that AI mode as usual, while subjects that are flying about all over the friggin' place are usually cleanly captured with bugger all blur. If the lighting is strong enough, you can shoot 48 megapixel pics using a bonus camera mode, and this clearly does add finer detail to your photos. Or if you need an alternative viewpoint, the Poco F3 also serves up a simple 8 megapixel ultra-wide angle shooter, which is standard fare. The image detail and colours take a bit of a hit, but not to a serious degree. You've also got a 5 megapixel telemacro lens, similar to the Mi 11, so you can get really up close shots of stuff without having to get too near. And plenty of bonus camera modes have been shoved on here too, including a nifty portrait mode that adds a slick bokeh style effect to your shots, and that can be tweaked after you've taken the photo if you want to make it stronger or weaker. You've also got a night mode, which isn't great. It slightly brightens up low light pics, but the focus often struggles when things get dim anyway. As for video, you can shoot up to 4K resolution footage with respectable results once more. Detail levels are good enough to zoom in and still get reasonably sharp footage, and stabilization is pretty good even at that Ultra HD level. Audio is cleanly picked up too, with only a bit of distortion thanks to the wind. And if you want to shoot video with the ultra wide angle lens, well, that tops off at full HD level and it's okay-ish. The 20 megapixel selfie shooter on the Poco F3 is good too, capturing all of those sags and bags a little too easily. Skin tones look natural even in quite soft light or strong contrast, so the Poco F3 accurately makes me look like an exhausted spectre. And there's the usual portrait shenanigans to keep the focus square on your mug. So on the surface level, certainly the Poco F3 seems to be nothing particularly extravagant, very functional design and everything, but it does deliver in pretty much every single area, including that gorgeous AMOLED screen and that fantastic performance as well, which is ideal for gaming. In other areas like the camera tech, it's merely fine, and the battery life is a bit of a disappointment. Hopefully that will improve over time, but we'll have to wait and see on that front. But yeah, the Poco F3 is definitely all about that performance, so if you want something that can cope with absolutely anything and that won't show its age anytime soon, on a budget of around that sort of £300 to £350 mark, then definitely give it a chance. So that's what I reckon. What do you guys think? It'd be great to hear from you down below. Definitely check out my Poco X3 Pro unboxing as well, which should be going live about the same time as this video. A bit cheaper, not quite as sexy on the specs, but definitely got some very good features and other bits packed in there. Please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech, and have yourselves a fantastic rest of the week. Lots of content going live on the channel this week, so it's going to get busy. So yeah, have yourselves a good one. Cheers everyone. Love you.